Hello and welcome to the Dustin Eric Podcast Show, brought to you by Mimosa Networks. Hi, I'm Dustin.
And I'm Eric.
The weather outside is frightful. So what do we need to consider during the weather change? Yeah, that's great music.
Layering.
So actually, today's episode is inspired by a chat this morning.
Tell us about it.
So somebody put up a brand new B5C. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it's connectorized. It's got LMR cables. And then over the weekend, man, it got really cold, snowy, rainy. And then one of their vertical chain went down to about 4 or 5 SNR instead of, 30. Of course, the first thing that comes to my mind is there's some kind of moisture in that cable. It wasn't sealed up. What do you think, Eric?
I'm with you.
You're with me?
I'm with you, yeah. And then, of course, you went through the troubleshooting, had them flip-flop the coax jumpers. Did the problem follow?
They said it was 100 miles away, so we don't know.
Oh.
They had to go to the site. So.
They'd have to do a truck roll 100 miles up. Wow.
But that story is inspiring today's show. So what we want to talk about is, since the weather has changed, since it is getting really cold out there, really wet, what are the things that we need to check on? So say, hey, we have Ethernet flapping. What do you think is the main cause of that once it gets, the weather starts getting hot and then cold, or just cools down super cold, like with the bomb cyclone we had come through the Midwest?
They keep coming up with all these names, but we keep on, we come back with things to do to remedy this stuff. I look at, for ETH flapping, I look at the physical connection at the radio and look at the gland. Is the rubber, the outer shell, is the rubber still intact? The inner gland piece that pinches the Cat6, does it come loose? Is there moisture ingress in there?
Right.
Things like that. Is there stress? Sometimes there's a lot of stress on the on that cat once it kind of bends around and comes into the port, and maybe it's getting pulled away a little bit and whatnot.
Yeah, like condensation in the cable ends, or because of the rapid temperature change, maybe a crack in the cable, and you start getting water in the cable.
Yep.
It starts shorting out your cable ends or something like that.
That's a good point, like a crack in the
We had that happen at my last place where even though it was shielded Cat6 cable going up the tower, it somehow either was really cheap or something, but ended up getting a crack or something in the cable. Where we go down to the bottom of the tower there, we look at the cable, it's just full of water. We strip back the sheathing and water just pours out of it.
I've seen that on a variety of different cables, from LMRs to RG6 cable, TV cable. Cut the ends and the stuff comes out to ETH as well. Yep, it travels. And then you'll have some bad oxidation and some poor performance, and you've damaged the copper inside, and that sometimes it runs for several feet. You're going to scrap the piece anyway, the copper anyway, and you cut it back a few more feet, it's still crappy, and come back a few more feet, it still is damaged all the way up. It can get pretty bad.
Right. So because of all the snow and the ice and the rain and the temperatures, Eric, what else should we consider looking at to prevent something like this from happening, prevent any kind of maintenance issues on, say, any of our radios or any other radios out there?
Maybe repeat visits or routine maintenance, looking at connectors, looking at the quality or the condition of these connectors and the terminations, whether RF or Ethernet.
Check your waterproofing on your RF cables.
Yep, and wrap, self-vulcanizing tape, and Scotch 44 and some of the other Scotch numbers. That goes out to Mike. Look at some of the quality tapes that are out there. And then you might have multiple layers of these types of things to prevent ingress of moisture and whatever.
But even with that, you still have a risk of getting some kind of condensation in there, right?
Yep. So you still have to look. Yeah, you might have taped the heck out of something below the gland, even on the gland itself. But guess what? There's still that little barrier or that little gasket that meets up to the bottom of the radio, and there's potential for a little opening right there and get stuff in. Yeah. Another
issue I've seen and had to deal with personally was water actually getting into the feed horn on the dish. So for some reason, the coax connection wasn't sealed well, and so actually the feed horn filled up with water.
Yep.
So I had to take the feed horn out. Get all the water out of it. It worked fine afterwards, but
once it maybe dry it out, or I remember we saw a bad chain issue. Things looked good in the shelter, telecom shelter, but ran up the tower, and I think you went up to a tower about 80 miles south of here, and unscrewed some coax, and water kind of poured out of that one jumper, huh?
Right. And so it doesn't matter how well you think you have your waterproofing, you might end up with water or something in there anyway.
Now, back to the feed horn. So there's often weep holes and things to let the moisture or the condensation kind of drip out. But those are things to look at. Hey, and also is maybe you've got the feeds here and you've rotated it or something, and now the weep hole or something, the little drain is up on top, or you installed it that way. Now anything down here that's sealed can collect, right, and fill up. So things to.
Well, that particular vendor didn't have a weep hole on it.
Oh, so you got what you got.
Yeah.
Once it went in.
So what else do you think?
It's the rainy season, snow, ice build up, temperature gets warm, and it rains again, and you look it up in Anchorage and the Dakotas or wherever you're at, into Finland and so on. And so one thing we look at is ice, rain, and so forth. But how about wind?
Mm-hmm.
Big wind.
So actually, what you were just talking about brought it to my head as well. The expand and contract of the mount during warm days and cold nights, or
maybe
at least when the sun's out shining on the mount, and then it gets super cold at night. It loosens up your dish.
I think that might be a bigger issue above 10 gigahertz more. If you're talking about the mount kind of contracting, kind of slightly.
Well, I'm saying that it loosens up the mount enough that the wind will blow the dish.
Loosen up the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're looking at the signal drop and want to re-peak and retighten things.
Right. Okay. So I'm sure the viewer's question would be, well, how do we know this is the case? Yeah. How do we know this is our problem? So if you're cloud connected, if you're using Mimosa radios, the best thing to do would be to go to your cloud account, look at that particular link, and go back, a day or two or whenever this issue started. And if you've got water or if wind is blowing outside and your radio is down or the signal is weak, you can watch that graph and you can watch it degrade in signal level. Or, if the wind is super fast, you might just see, whew, it's dead.
It'll catch up as it sweeps. A little histogram or whatever you want to say. You'll see the RSSI come up and go and so on. So go back before the big windstorm and the stuff hit. Let's say. But compare.
It comes down to you, and when events happen in your network better than we do because it's your network. So hey, we just had a huge windstorm come through. We'll go back, like Eric said, to before it happened, look at your signal level, and then look at the graphs, over the duration of the windstorm and after, and see what your signal level looks like.
That's a good troubleshooing tip
because you can go. Huge indicator.
You can cut. Well, here's my other towers. They're pretty solid, but this one's behaving like this, and they're all within 5 miles or 2 miles or 25 or 50 miles. So it's kind of the same weather area, region. So they all got hit with wind, but that one dish is kind of possibly gone like this, kind of moved a little bit.
And the same thing goes for your LMR coax cabling. Is look at it before the rainstorm or whatever kind of storm you had, and then look at it during and after. And if there's water ingress on that, you should see the signal level slowly drop on one, either horizontal or vertical. Hopefully you don't have water in both. And then you can see it degrade until it's next to nothing or nothing at all, depending on how much water you have in there. So, and of course, you'd have to go out and replace that cable because it's pretty much ruined at that point.
And that reminds me of some dual feeds, dual end connector type horns or dishes or whatnot. Some are maybe fed from from coming into the horn from the bottom with the coax jumpers, and one often we'll see that maybe the vertical is coming in here at the bottom, and the other one's coming at 90 degrees, of course, for horizontal. And then, hey, is that guy okay, the horizontal guy, or how did you sweep your coax in there? Is the water is captured on the jumper and kind of just traveling all the way in? So that's all the mechanics, something in the mechanics to look at.
Right. And if you're having cabling issues, again, you can go on the cloud and look at your logs. You can log into the radio and look at your logs and see when the flapping started. And if you can, you can line that up when a storm started or during a storm, then you can kind of figure out that, oh, maybe I have some kind of water damage or water in the cable. And at least you know where to start looking.
Hey, look! Yeah, hey, look! The RF section, the link's great. The RF on the link, this looks great. The radio section looks great. But like you're saying, hey, how about the Ethernet? And what's its history? How's it doing? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So again, it really comes down to you guys to actually go through and troubleshoot this as well, because while we can guess what might be going on, you know your network better than anybody else. You know what was happening in your network more than any of us. So,
are you guys? Have you lost AC mains? Say you're up on a tower, you lost AC mains. No 110 or 220 volt at 50 cycles or whatever to your little your telecom site. Are you on generator? Are you getting alerts? What's going on up on the hill?
right.
As well.
So just be conscious of of things going on weather-wise, and most of the time you can correlate those events to issues you're seeing on your link. So anyway, that's it for this episode 29.
Safety.
And we'll catch you next time on the next episode. So have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe or follow button to stay up to date with our latest podcast, which will be available on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud.